no idea where we were going to end up. We ended up coming to Santa Cruz, and I was starting to try and figure out a way to make a living. And the kind of pictures I took before were not particularly conducive to making a living. And then I did get a job at I was working here at UCSC in the photo lab, which doesn't exist anymore. And then I got a job working at the Scotts Valley Banner and the Valley Press. And this is a photo where I was starting to figure out how my vision could translate into stuff that would create ways to tell the world. And this is a new superintendent of schools, Andy Lacouture, and I was assigned to go take a picture of him, portrait. And then I was kind of trying to figure out how can we tell the story in a different way, right? The superintendent doesn't teach, they're in his office. We met in Andy's office. And then kind of had this idea of, oh, we need kids in the picture, and then how are we going to structure the picture? And I'll talk more about this as we go along, but I'm really interested in how we fill the frame, right? Like the rectangle we use in our cameras is a kind of a random, arbitrary constraints of pictures, right? Like when George Eastman invented cameras that people could use back in the 19th century, they were round, right? And there's no reason that they couldn't be round. But I'm interested in filling the corners and where the lines go. So let's see. And then to get a sense of what my job is like, this was just at a controlled burn up at UCSC up here a little while by a good friend of mine, Jaden Shaw, who grew up here and is a news photographer. So this is just to give you a sense before we get into the actual pictures themselves of what my job is like and how much fun it is. Right, this is covering the tour of California when it came through. Probably remember it came up Bonnie Doon Road in a couple of years. At the Super Bowl when it was in Levi Stadium. This is at Botshabelo, an AIDS village in South Africa, which my camera has brought me to. It's photographing one of the 4 times I've been in conversations with the Dalai Lama. Oh, went the wrong way, sorry about that. It's at the Sri Ram Ashram. That is me, even though it says live transcription right over my face. Oh, thank you. See, it's a good thing, except I don't have a cursor is the problem. So thank you. I don't, and if I press escape, I'm going to be out of the slideshow. But if you want to come do it, I'm real good. And this picture is from the CZU. This is from my good friend, Kevin Payne-Shot, who works for Lookout local. And he actually won a really big photo contest with this. But this gives you a sense of what I do. And then, because you're probably wondering, like, am I prepared for fires, right? Like I'm out there, and this is what I carry with me in my car at all times, right? So I have a lot of training. I'm very careful. I tell my wife, Kathy, who's here, that I'm coming home every day, and you know, flashlights, boots, and things like that. And also I've been trained, I've taken a bunch of fire trainings. So anyway, so we'll get into the pictures. So what I wanted to show you was in a lot of these assignments, so this is, I think, January 2nd or 3rd up at San Lorenzo Valley High School, and the majority of sports we shoot are high school sports, right, in Santa Cruz County, that there's different ways to shoot it. Now, when the action, we're looking for peak action, right? But then there's moments in the same game that there's, you know, there's something really different that tells a totally different story. And we use both these pictures in the paper, and I'm incredibly fortunate the Sentinel runs whatever I give them. Now they don't have a choice because I'm the only photographer. But back in the day, when I started in 1987, I would bring back pictures like this, and they kind of weren't used to it, but they put up with me. And one of the great things actually about my job is that you can continue to grow and get better every single day. Right? I mean, I've been at Sentinel for 35 years. If you think about how many, when I go to a basketball game, I'll shoot 700-800 pictures, right? And I'll shoot like, you know, 3-4 assignments a day. Games tend to have more pictures shot at them, but I mean, it's millions and millions of pictures, right? And paying attention to what I'm doing helps me get better. And I'm a way better photographer than I was when I started Sentinel, and I think I'm a way better photographer than I was 2 years ago, I really do feel like that. And the majority of that comes from working hard for me. I mean, that's what I'm proudest of what I do. I work really, really hard to try and do a good job. And then it's seeing, right? It's seeing things. And then once again, I talked about how the edges work, how the frame is filled up, you know, that one of the things I'm really struck by is if you were a painter, you wouldn't ever leave a corner of your canvas and go, oh, I don't worry about that. I don't care about that, right? But if you're a photographer, I mean, okay, how many of you have looked at a picture on Facebook? Okay, a few of you, right? There's a lot of really crappy pictures on Facebook. And I don't necessarily believe that all those people are innately bad photographers. I feel like that they're maybe not paying enough attention, and maybe they don't have time, and maybe it's not a priority, but I feel like a lot of what I do is pay attention, like to the fact that there is actually light coming through the back of a wave, right? Or how we see the world, how we frame it. This picture, I cropped some out. I don't add anything in, okay? I guess I should be clear about that. I don't take things out or put things in through Photoshop or cloning or whatever, because that feels photojournalistic to me, that when you see my pictures in the paper, you believe it's a real moment. But I will crop it and I'll tone it so it will look like what I saw, right? And this is my least favorite picture in this slideshow, but I only put it in because it's an important event. This is when the tsunami came through the harbor in January. And I waited, I wish I could get through to that thing. Let me see if I can find the cursor. I'm gonna, forgive me here for a minute. I'm gonna see now if I have a cursor. Look at that. Okay, now I have to figure out how to play this again. We're back. Okay, better, right? So I waited for a long time because that truck was floating around and stuff. And then I waited for those people to be up top because journalism mostly, I mean, I have pictures of birds, as many of you have seen, but mostly it has to do with our experience as human beings in this place, right? Shoot a lot of surf. Sometimes they start looking a little similar, but you know, I love going out to Steamer Lane. There's probably no better place to shoot surf in the world because you're so close to where the action's happening. And this is the furthest picture in this slideshow other than the Cape Canaveral shot. This is the fire, the Colorado fire down in Big Sur. And because we could see it here, it felt important enough to go take pictures, and because we're so concerned about wildfires. I am standing on Highway 1 at a turnout. It was very convenient. And I got out of my car. I have a reasonably long lens, and this plane came probably 3 minutes after I got out of my car. It was the only air drop from a tanker I saw. So it was a pretty lucky moment. And it's cropped. Even with my 400mm lens, it wasn't close enough. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I'm lying on the ground. And actually the question was, was I on my back under the playground structure in the beginning? And yeah, I tend to be in really weird positions, and my pants knees get scraped up a lot. And yeah. Yeah, what? I guess not really, but I will, just for full disclosure. Oh, so the question was, did I enhance the red of this photo? And this fire retardant, if you've been under it, there's pink fire retardant and red fire retardant, and it's really bright color. But I will say that every picture that I put in the paper, not online necessarily, because if it was shot with my phone and I sent it out like at a fire, not this fire, but during CZU, I'd be sending pictures from my phone to our online edition so we could have pictures so you would know what's happening with fire. But every picture I take goes through Photoshop. And I try and make them look as close to what I saw as possible. Now, our eyes have millions and millions of gradations of color and tone, and certainly newsprint doesn't. And I changed some stuff in the pictures also because the paper we print on is mostly kind of yellow. So I have to take a little yellow out to do that. But you know, I try not to exaggerate it. This is, some of you may know Glo Nieto. She just passed away, Gloria Nieto. So this was at the opening of she was very involved with Santa Cruz Community Health, and this was their opening of a new clinic up in Ben Lomond. She's being hugged by Bruce McPherson, and just was this great moment. I mean, and especially now that she's passed, I think that it's special to have this, and then with the stained glass windows. So one of the things, I'll go on a little before I go there. So this is, I've started shooting with a drone over the last year or so. I'm getting pretty good at it. For me, the learning curve was really steep, and then it's leveled off, and I'm nowhere near shooting video with it yet, because that's going to be, I probably won't get there. If you look at the drone photographers who are doing amazing video, that hats off to them. You know, I will never be able to do that in that way. And that's one of the things about my job, right? That I think that as a newspaper photographer, and there's very few newspaper photographers left, like think of whatever profession you were in. My belief is, and I know almost all of them or know who they are, there's probably, it keeps going down. I think there's 50 newspaper photographers and staff newspaper photographers in the state of California right now. So first of all, we're getting less news, right? Which is a little dangerous. But you know, it's just an interesting thing to be in this really select group of folks who are, and no one goes into journalism for the salary, but we do go into journalism to tell stories and to shine. It's the Washington Post that says it, democracy dies in darkness. And I worry that we're headed there a little because of how few resources are dedicated to newspapers and news outlets, and who owns them, but that's a whole nother thing. So okay, another sports story. We tend to shoot high school sports, but we do shoot Cabrillo and UCSC. And this is, I'll show you two pictures, I think two pictures, I mainly have one here. This is at first base, peak moment, right? The Cabrillo first baseman is in the air, the gloves touching the guy's helmet, the background's reasonably clean. And then the next day, or the same night, I see that the moon, there's that, I forget what this moon is called. But you can see that's the sliver of the moon when you can see the rest of the moon behind it. It's Cabrillo also. They brought the Warriors here for me, I guess. Actually, I did get to play there once at the arena, twice at Celebrity Challenge. And then there's weird things like this, just driving around. Because most of my job these days, it used to be when we had lots more reporters and we had a very different kind of dynamic and paradigm at the paper, 90% of my photos were assignments, and maybe 10 or maybe even less. Maybe it was down to 2 or 3% were what we call feature shots, freestanders, where I go out and find that cool stuff. So now it's easily the proportions have changed. So 90% of my day is, or maybe even more, is spent doing things that I self-assign. So a lot of it's, you know, people here, some of you may have sent me an email or a text, and I'll have my email up there at the end, of things, cool things that you're doing. And I'll warn you, don't send me or don't contact me if you're not willing to hear that I can't come, because I'm really good at saying no. But I love hearing what the community is doing. That's what I find, that's what I get most of my assignments. This was really cool event at the lighthouse, obviously. So having the lighthouse makes us know it's in Santa Cruz, right? And, you know, I'm really clear, Lisa Rose back there will know when she was in my class when I used to teach at Cabrillo. And, you know, if you have a horizon or a line on a wall, it better be straight because we'll notice it right away, right? Well, if you look at, you know, pictures, all sorts of people have crooked pictures. Like, why do you have crooked, unless you want the picture to be crooked? And this was at the memorial moment for Butch Baker and Elizabeth Butler, the two Santa Cruz cops who were killed in action in the line of duty a number of years ago. And this is every year there's moments of silence at Santa Cruz City Hall. And it's Bernie Escalante to the left, who's the police chief, and this officer here, part of the color guard. So it just felt kind of told that story, right? Night soccer, I would tell you that shooting at night sports is awful. Technology has increased, so it's much easier than it used to be. I promise that I'm not going to geek out on technical stuff, but for those of you who do know photography, when we first went digital at the Sentinel, I was a film photographer and I was a printer for a photographer back east. So when we first went digital in 2003, those cameras it was brand new technology. It was wonderful, but we could shoot pictures at ISO 800 at the highest. Okay. Otherwise, it got what you would think of as grainy was actually noisy. We call it noisy because the technology wasn't there. And now I can shoot pictures at ISO 50,000. Okay. It's a big difference. It means if ISO doesn't mean anything to you, it means that I can shoot pictures much more easily in really dark situations. And so I put this picture in for that reason, just to show this. In the old days, there's no way this could have I could have shot this. And I don't like the fact that there's that car behind, on the right side of the picture. But and if the next time you go to a football field like Santa Cruz High or Aptos High School or wherever you go, if you ever go, notice that the end zones are really, really dark. They don't have the lights set up in the way that is for photographers, I guess. So this was on a homeless census. This gentleman was working to do the homeless census and just looked like this beautiful moment with the tree behind it. Sports is peak action again. This is the moment, the decisive moment, right? One girl is sliding in, the ball's there. You see the dust from the slide. The expressions are good. You see both their faces. And, I probably cropped out a little, but it's right at third base. So I was probably pretty close to this. And it's a really nice, clean background. So that's what helps make this in the same game, I think. No, never mind. So part of my job is covering breaking news. This was on this, hope that it's not someone who's here. I don't think so, but this is on a couple of streets from us. And my wife and I heard a lot of sirens, and I have a couple of apps that tell me what's going on, a couple of friends who are out shooting pictures. And how do we tell the story in hopefully respectfully? I really believe that firefighters and police officers are risking their lives every day, right? And we can talk about lots of issues about police, but someone does it. If you're a highway patrol officer and you make a car stop, that's a dangerous thing every time you do it. So I really respect them, and I like showing what they do. And others, yep. Okay, so the question was, do I need to get permission to show that photo? Theoretically, no. Theoretically, if something's happening in public and I'm on public property, like a street, I can shoot whatever I want. It doesn't mean that I don't think about it. It doesn't mean that I don't consider it. It doesn't mean that there are things like that aren't big deals that I wouldn't run in the paper because it didn't have news value, because I understand that could be the worst moment of that woman's life, right? I mean, and so there's this, and it's a challenge I deal with every time I'm going out to something like this. What's the line between public's right to know and the need to know and the need to inform the community of things that happen? Like if we're paying for the firefighters, right, and the cops. So what they do is our business. And at what point then also does it go, okay, well, this political person didn't like didn't want their picture in the paper doing this, do I let them tell me no? You know, it's a very complicated thing to go through, right? I mean, and you know, I don't put bumper stickers on my car because I want to be welcome. I mean, this sounds a little weird. I want to be able to go to a Klan rally and take pictures, right? I want to show what's going on in our community. And it's David Brinkley, I think, who said, we can't be objective. I think that's a fallacy. We can't be objective, so we need to be fair. So that's, I mean, it's a challenge, you know, and I understand that, you know, and we had a big discussion right the day after the Loma Prieta earthquake. My colleague at the time, Dan Coiro, got a picture of Edith Dominguez being carried out of it was Ford's department store, which had collapsed, and part of her leg was kind of missing or was kind of hanging off. And that became an iconic picture all over the country. But we ran it, we blocked out the part where they put something else, another picture, an inset picture over where her leg was. And I don't know if it was the right decision or not, and it's a real thing that happens. We don't, in the Sentinel, unless it's a war, we won't run dead bodies. But, you know, I don't know if that answered that question or not, but kind of. This is Little League Picture Day and Jamboree. So, and one of the things that I'm really struck by continually specifically when I see pictures that don't work, and many of mine don't work either. It's like, you know, you're seeing a nice, I was able to cull from the last 10 months, a bunch of nice pictures, but is that the way we see the world is really different than the way we see pictures, right? Like when you're presenting a picture, you have transformed three-dimensional reality into a two-dimensional image, right? And it's really different, and the way we see it is really different. Like when we look in the world, like we are, you can see one thing at a time, right? And then, but your brain is able to put them together to make the whole picture. But when you see an image, you know, the kid in the far right, you know, he needs to be there. I need to make sure his cap is there. I don't want distracting background. So it's those kinds of things that I'm thinking about all the time. So a lot of my job is just driving around. As I said, I love it. I'm like incredibly fortunate. So this is changing the light out at the town clock. Yeah. Okay, the question was another touchy subject, children. You mean, how do I approach that? Okay, well, there's a bunch of, without getting too deep into it, it used to be easier. And I don't want to be the 64-year-old white guy heading up to kids to talk to little kids, especially girls. I really don't, you know, and my intentions are honorable. However, we live in a world where bad things happen. And so if I go to a school and they've invited me in, I will always say, are there kids that can't have their picture taken? I don't want to be the person to have had a kid, you know, if the parents have had an acrimonious divorce and, you know, that someone finds out their kid is someplace. So I won't take pictures of kids at a school and told that they don't have photo releases. Although, once I'm invited into the school, theoretically, legally, I can shoot pictures of pretty much whatever I want. But I think that's a really good parameter to do. If I see something happening, I might take a picture really fast if I know that it's a fleeting moment. Other than that, if there's kids at the park, I always find their parents. And I don't even like to go up to ask where their parents are. Because I mean, it's a scary world. You know, I have two daughters and most of the pictures of kids, I mean, the Jamboree, I actually didn't ask because they're there, they're going to get their picture taken. And it was kind of like, please come take pictures here. And maybe that I should have, but I didn't. You know, there's almost no pictures of kids that are happening that are that are things that if I don't take them would be the end of the world. So that's where it is, you know. Oh, yes. So that the comment was that I've had many more instances of parents and grandparents wanting copies of the photos. And what I do now, by the way, if you ever have grandkids, your grandkids in the paper, is I will send you a digital copy if you make a donation to, it's Food, What, and Digital Mess, or who my chosen charities. So yeah, it's, I mean, once again, you know, there's so much positive interaction with this community, with me in this community, and this community with me. I mean, it's just, I kid around, you know, thank you all for whoever, if any of you have written letters to the editor, you know, talking about my photos, it's great. And then I kid around that it's my mother writing under, you know, different pseudonyms. Yeah. Oh, no. No, it's not video. Video, there are some Sony cameras that can take the stills out of the video, but I shoot with Canon mirrorless cameras, and I probably could, but I shoot, but well, it's a multifaceted answer. So I shoot with on high, not super high. So it's like 10 frames a second. So when something's happening, not this in particular, but like when there's a runner coming into slide, or there's two soccer players converging, we used to call it spray and pray. Yeah, right. So, but the trick is to first of all, not come back with 5,000 pictures, right? And because, as my wife will tell you, you know, I'm pretty, as you can probably tell, I'm pretty compulsive about making them as good as they can be. And so that can take some time. But the trick, I think, is real, and quite honestly, is to know when there's likely to be moments, and to know which moments those were, right? So, you know, with this picture here, I was seeing that the dust was coming off the bat every time someone hit the ball. So I really wanted it, because the sun is like behind center field. So, you know, so I lean on the shutter, not as fast as I could, because I did it on high, it's called high plus on my camera, and I was coming back with too many pictures. And there's probably moments I miss. So once again, sports features, right? Something that's not the actor. This is Matt Ryan, my friend Matt Ryan, who's the Harvard SoCal High golf coach, and watching his team play. I just love the way the bunkers look, and the grass looks, and the whole thing. And, you know, and once again, it's, you know, we're making decisions as photographers of what vantage you shoot from, how much is in focus, how much depth of field there is, right? Because I wanted everything to be in focus. And sometimes if you look like, well, I'll go back, it's just right by the batters in focus, right? That's what I wanted for that. So it's making these choices. And then there's some really awful stuff we have to cover. You know, this was a motorcyclist who was doing, they think, close to 100 miles an hour down Bay Street, hit a sign, and lost his life. This is where the motorcycle came to rest, about 100 feet from where his body was at the end of this. And this is a friend of his, and I had a conversation with her. So, you know, she let me use her name. You know, and that's one of those questions of permission or consent. Then I'm constantly going out when it's rain. We're going to run a rain picture the next day, right? That's what we do. And so how does it look different each time? For example, you know, I've been at Sentinel for 35 years, and typically I will go, well, probably in the beginning we had 3 photographers. We had Bill Lovejoy, Dane Coiro, and myself. So, but that said, you know, I've been to the county fair now. I've photographed the county fair usually 2 or 3 days each year for 35 years. And I really work hard to come back with different pictures each time, right? That's what makes my life, I mean, that's what makes the job, me doing this, so interesting. Like, it's great, you know, but it's challenging, you know? And some of you may have seen, I have a photo page I've done every Thursday now called Photographer's Eye. And it's a pleasure, you know, what a cool thing I get to do, but occasionally, and we're coming up on 2 years. So it'll been in a week, I think will be the anniversary. So it'll be a 6 photo package once a week it'll be 104 weeks. So sometimes I'm kind of stressed about what's going to be the next one, but one of you will call me and tell me what it is. So that's good. And I did a little story about Companion Bake Shop and the bakers who get up early in the morning. And this was definitely my favorite picture from that. Once again, you know, holding the camera up or lying on, someone asked before, lying on my back, or, you know, different perspective. Putting in a Life Lab garden that Big Creek Lumber donated the lumber, and this is at Twin Lakes School. So they'll call me, they'll send me a press release. I tell people in general that I unless it's like a huge public school, I don't go to ribbon cuttings, I don't go to check passings. And then I say usually, well, let's get a picture showing what's really happening. They go, and usually I'd say 99% of the time the response is, oh, that's a really good idea. So, you know, then we go get a picture of kids doing something. Yeah. Yeah, I'd say, and that's one thing that's changed since my job is morphed to doing more of these feature freestanding pictures. Yeah, so I work really hard on it. I work really hard on because, you know, writing is harder for me than photography. But they're both crafts, you know, they're both, you have to work on it. And so I use Google a lot, I use press releases. I you know, when it's a picture of Westlake fog at Westlake Pond, I want to find out what the history of Westlake Pond is, because I don't know. And then, so I'm able to say that. Yeah. Yeah, the company that, oh, sorry, the question was, the company that owns the Sentinel owns a lot of other papers. Do they use the photos? Pretty much, yes. We're owned we're in a chain called NorCal, which is related to Bang, which is Bay Area News Group. So our chain includes like Monterey, Marin, Vacaville, Chico. Bay Area News Group is the Mercury News, East Bay Times, which I don't think the Oakland Tribune exists anymore. But and to give you a sense, just before I go there, the Mercury News, I was just talking to Patty Hannon, Judith Kelson, who were photographers at the Mercury News, who both live here in Santa Cruz. And they, I think at the height of their newsroom, they had 26 full-time staff photographers at the Mercury News. That didn't include the East Bay Times and the Milpitas paper and the Hayward paper, and now there are 4, I think. Like in the Sentinel, we had and I feel incredibly fortunate too to have been at the Sentinel during this time when, for those of you who've been around, you know, Peggy Townsend was there, May Wong was there, Martha Mendoza was there, Dan White was there. We had a sports department of 6 award-winning reporters. We had an amazing, for the size we had an amazing paper. And we had 46 full-time employees, and we have 8 now. So that said, I still think, well, first of all, I get up every morning, have my coffee and my banana bread, and I read the paper. And I will be really sad, and I hate to say this, when that goes away. I think the news is going to be online, unfortunately, entirely. And you've heard me talk before, the way we look at news online, the way we read a newspaper are really different. And I think it's a really unfortunate change, because when you, and myself included, now I'm not blaming anyone for this, when I go online to look at news, I click on what I'm interested in, right? When I read a newspaper, I see all sorts of things that I read that I would not have clicked on. And that's the difference of how we're consuming news, and whether you're an NPR listener or whether you're a Fox News listener or watcher. It's the same thing, right? They become these kind of echo chambers, and we're not getting a, I mean, I'm not sure if there's objective reality, but there's accepted reality. And that we're getting far away from that end. So anyway, so Alden Global Capital owns the art chain. They're, I think, the third biggest newspaper owner after Gannett and McClatchy in the country, I think. And things change all the time, and we don't know anything about them. And as long as we're making money, they leave us alone. And we're in our chain, we're doing the best of any paper. And I also still think, you know, the paper of, like, you get the Monday, if you get the Sentinel, actually, how many of you get the Sentinel? Oh, thank you. Thank you. You're keeping me employed. And, you know, the Monday paper especially is really thin, right? We know that. And the prices there, I think they're trying to get rid of the print edition by continuing to raise the prices. However, that said, I still firmly believe that there is no place else, including Lookout, including Santa Cruz Local, including Good Times, that you can get as much information about Santa Cruz County anywhere else but the Sentinel. In other words, if you want to know what's happening on the school board, unless you want to go to the school board website, I think we are the best we still are the best clearinghouse. And despite the fact that I don't have very kind things to say about our owners, the staff is amazing. We have a great, great, great staff. You know, reporters who really, really care about covering it. And especially, give a little shout out to Jim Seamus, who's he's our whole sports department. And he's writing stories. And I mean, it's amazing. So anyway. And I couldn't get over to get this guy's name. So unfortunately, but it was a day of huge waves. How do you show it differently than ever before? It's out on the east side. I did a little story about Leela Kalo, she's the teacher. This is Santa Cruz Movement, which is, they opened up right near the Buttery. And so it's a studio, and show what their class is like. So, you know, she called and said, hey, we're opening the studio. And I was like, let's go take some pictures, you know. Here I am lying on the ground again. You know, how do you show it in a different way? You know, this is an artist up in Zayani. It was doing the Zayani, I think it was called the Zayani Art Tour or something. I don't think it was San Lorenzo Valley, but it might have. Anyway, it was a bunch of artists got together and did their own art tour. And I wanted to get them a little publicity, a little, you know, press. And so how do I see it differently? And I shot a lot of different pictures. And, you know, I'll always, in every situation, shoot something that's really safe and kind of traditional and conventional. And my hope is to not use it, you know. So here's, once again, this is up in San Lorenzo Valley, is the SLV center fielder, and the ball's there, you know, it's really nice and clean. And then this is the same game, high five after someone scored. So I saw that, and I was like, this is, of the two, that's far and away my favorite picture on there. And I think I don't know where we are in time. I'm going to speed up here. What do you think, Barry? Okay, so we'll go really fast, okay? So hang on. So once again, sports is not always on the field. It can be the celebration or a veterans event. How do we show it? How do we tell the story? Is the horizon straight? This is Wingnut, who was in Endless Summer 2, getting in the water to help. So 2 pictures from same event. Then there's 2 pictures of these women who go in and play music in juvenile hall. And they called me, told me they were doing it. And then, but I love this picture. You see where they are. But I love this picture. This is just really a different look. John Sisk, who many of you may know, it's a walk a mile in her shoes, is to raise money for counting of the ballot. So once again, how do we see it? You know, how do I, this is, and this is Black Surf Club Santa Cruz, their event. And another shot from the drone. So, you know, how do I, I'm given this privilege of being in these situations. How do I take that responsibility seriously and bring back images that tell us who we are? And you know what? Since we're getting close to the end, I'm going to skip some. I'm going to go. Oh, should I keep going? You tell me. Okay. Okay. Don't blame me. All right. Well, okay, I'll go quick though. This is the shared adventures. You know, they have the day at the beach. My wife was there helping me get IDs. And once again, good use of the drone. When I wouldn't have used this picture as the main picture, but it tells another part of the story. Day after. So it's just seeing it and seeing, like I had never seen this in 35 years of Sentinel. I'd never seen it look like that's at its speed. So then I have a few pictures here. There was a fire in Aromas probably a month and a half ago. And just to get what it's like to go there. So this is I'm on highway, I think I'm on highway 129. This is my good friend Nick Curry. This is what I looked like shooting back at him probably. And so it's going around this, trying to figure out what's going on, listening to the police radio, the fire radio, getting different pictures. Or wharf to wharf, same wharf to wharf. I've shot the wharf to wharf a lot. I ran it 1 year. I didn't let the Kenyans half my time successfully, but this was great picture, the winner coming through. And this was another picture from the race, right? I like this picture. This is like, I love this picture. It's just a little different. It's at an equine therapy place for folks with autism. So there's, you know, they get, it's really interesting how their demeanor and their interaction with the world changes when they're around these animals. So a fire down in out in a storage yard on the frontage road between SoCal and 41st. So it's getting in there. The firefighters know me, most of them. They know I'm going to be safe. I have that gear on that you saw. So they let me into that thing. This was a woman. She's oh, what's the name of it? Don't remember. But she was selling her childcare place that had been around for so long, and this is her one of the last days, and just hung out there. And she let me know. So that's, you know, she let me know. Okay, so this was the day that they said the corpse flower is dying. Nothing's going to happen. This is the next night when it bloomed, and Franz Lanting, many of you know, is probably the preeminent nature photographer in the world, at one of, certainly, and he and his partner Chris Ekstrom live in Bonnie Doon, and they have their studio in down on Delaware. It's a new prayer wheel that's being installed with nanotechnology. So it's all this cool stuff. You know, people call me. This was graduation at the jail of these folks who completed the course of learning to work in the food industry. And two pictures, same event, just very different, right? This one you really get a sense of him. And then I included a few. This is the trial of Carrillo, who killed Gutzwiller in the ambush up in Ben Lomond a few years ago. So this is just to give you a sense. We have to do this too. This is really awful. I hate going to stuff like this. There's Sheriff Jim Hart watching the proceedings. This is one of the deputies that watched Carrillo die. And we're in football season now. I'll end in a little just with football from was it last night? No, it was the night before, right? Water polo. I love shooting water polo. It's my favorite sport to shoot. I never played it or anything, but you're really close to it. And when it's during the day, the light's just beautiful. How do we see Steamer Lane differently or shoot it differently, right? Then obviously this is down the Benchlands. It's getting cleared that day. How do we show that in a way that's informative and respectful too? Some French kids competing with our junior guards. This is that Bandaloo, the folks who perform downtown at the mall. So it's shooting different ways, right? Seeing it different ways. having a moment. This is Fiestas Patrias down at Santa Cruz City Hall. Football, peak action. Well, the thing's covering it a little, but he does have the ball in his hand, I promise you. Touchdown, right, for Scotts Valley. How am I going to shoot the rain differently, right? Two different ways, same day. Shooting the rain two different ways. Storm. And luckily, this guy's he's a little crazy guy. He's not the guy. I thought he was the owner of the boat, but he was just looking at the boat, and when the wave came in and helped me. My good friend Mandy Spitzer, who has their open studios today. You can still go if I finish. You can. Go. There's Mandy. So it's two pictures from same thing. Controlled burn up here, right? And I don't know if you remember, there was a lot of smoke. So just a few pictures from it. And I'm in my fire gear and get a sense of different stuff. And I love this. We couldn't really run this picture because there wasn't room for it, but I love the flames. Water polo. So two different shots from the same game, right? Oh, not same game. The first was boys' game, the second was girls' game. Rio soccer. It's Peter Weiss, who has up here as a fog catcher. It's recently an event stabbing down at on the levee that sent the life flight. It's the Black and Brown Queer Fest, and luckily she's wearing a t-shirt. Helps, right? So we know what's going on. So we're getting to the end here. So this is, I love this. It's this garden that Emerald Gas Foundation gave $500,000 to Starlight Elementary to do a life lab garden and kitchen. And then this is one of the parents of the school with their kid in there. There's another girl from the school. So two very different things, right? Soccer, peak moment, peak action. I don't know if any of you were riding. This is a Sunrise Rotary ride to raise some money. And it really does look like this. If you go out on a day that's backlit, low tide, you will see that. Santa Cruz High. Two pictures, right? I'll go back. Oh, wait. Oh. Okay, so the action. Same game. This event is Adam Spickler. You can tell what the picture's about, right? Which is great. These beautiful posters about gay, LGBTQ plus history and contributions to Santa Cruz County, and it was the event announcing these posters. Was it just a couple days ago? Cabrillo Soccer again. Just a really different picture, right? Same game. Let's see. Ordination of the installation of the new pastor, first non-European pastor at Holy Cross in the history of Holy Cross Church, which is quite a while. Father Manny. UCSC soccer just down the hill. This was yesterday. Touchdown for St. Francis. They did win the game, and that's. Oh, and these are the last pictures, and I'll have one little PSA after this. This is Rise Together, an event for the underrepresented parts of our community, down the Community Foundation this weekend, Friday night. Here are the folks from it. My favorite picture from the event, we didn't run in the paper because it was like, I love this, but it doesn't tell the story in the way, and sometimes they. So I'll give you a little PSA. Yes, it's an ad. So Kevin Payne-Chod, who took that picture of me in the fire, we got together with a bunch of other folks, including Wallace Bain and a lot of really great folks in the community, put together this book called 2020 Hindsight. And it's a fundraiser for the fire victims of the CCU. So all the money went to them. Community printers donated the printing, and a bunch of really wonderful patrons helped out. George and Gail Al, Roland and Pat Rebely helped donate to it. So we printed a lot of books. It raised, I don't know, $10,000 or $12,000 for the fire fund, but I have a lot of books left. So if you want to see me, I don't know where I'll be, maybe over there. after you can make a donation to the community foundation. I have like 30 books. So anyway, that's it.
Okay, you know what I'm going to say, right? Please think about those students who have to